Hare Krishna. I thank all of you for watching this Weekend Wisdom series on Bhagavad Gita. We are continuing our discussion on chapter 5. In the last session, we had covered up to Shloka 5.11, and today we are going to cover from 5.12 to 5.22. And as we remember, if you remember, the name of the chapter is Karma Yoga, or Action in Krishna Consciousness. So there, in the first shloka, Arjuna had asked a very relevant question from Krishna that on one side you're talking about renunciation, and on the other side you are talking about performing the duties. So please tell me which one is best among these two. So now Krishna gave a very practical answers even in the earlier shloka. Then he's continuing his practical perspective that ultimately it is Karma Yoga, which is action in Krishna consciousness, is best or far superior than mere renunciation. So now let's continue our discussion from 5.12 onwards. Om Ajnanatirmirandhasya Jnananjalashalakaya Chakshurmilitamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. So if you look at Shloka 5.12, in that Shloka there is a reference of Shanti Mapanoti, and then the second word that's being used is Nibadhyate. So we'll briefly discuss what does it really mean. So Shanti Mapnoti means the peace. Everyone is looking for peace in this word. And Shanti Mapnoti, the term that has been used by Krishna, is with reference to the peace. What are the qualifications of a person who can live a peaceful life? And then Nibadhyate means entangled. And who is entangled in this life? So just by one qualification, we can understand this person is living a peaceful life and this person is living an entangled life, Nibadhyate. So who is leading the peaceful life? The one who offers the result of his activities to Krishna, who works on the platform of devotion. That means, in other words, he is not attached to the results. He performs all the activities and he is not attached to the results. So he is not dependent on what the outcome would be. Whether the outcome is in his favor or not, it is immaterial for him. Like for example, if someone is preparing for IIT examinations, then one may put hard efforts to crack the examination. And if the student is too much attached to the result, then he may get into the problem. But if a student is not attached to the result, but he just focuses on the hard work, then he is free from the problem. He will not get into the problem. He will try his best, and then he will offer the result to the Lordship. And the entanglement, the second term that we were talking about, entanglement only happens with people who are attached to the results. Because sometimes the result may be in your favor, sometimes the results may not be in your favor. Till the time result is in your favor, everything is fine. But as soon as the result is not in your favor, then there is a problem. And this is called as entanglement. That we get frustrated, we get disturbed because results are not happening the way we want. So we need to see where do we fall into in our day-to-day life. Are we living a peaceful life? If we are living a peaceful life, means that we offer the result of our activities and we do not get attached to them. And if we are attached to the results of our activities, then there is a problem and we are getting ourselves more and more entangled into this material world. And it is not that easy that people think so. It requires some consistent practice, then only we can break this wall. Otherwise, breaking this wall is not so easy for everyone. Let's move on to shloka 14. So in shloka 14, there is a specific term used as swabhavastu pravartate. Now, because of our past karma, we all acquire certain characteristics. Characteristics, maybe it could be in terms of our talents, our abilities, it could be in terms of our behavior that we carry, how we deal with the people in the society, the level of anger that we may carry, the level of emotional instinct we may carry. All this is falling into the category of the basic characteristics that all of us have. It could be in terms of even our intelligence, it could be in terms of our level of memory. Then basis these characteristics, we all work in this world. And even these characteristics are also one of the reason of having a specific society that we live in, or it could be the family that we live in, or a city that we live in, or the country that we live in. Then we perform our work on the basis of these basic characteristics, and then we have results from those activities, and then we get entangled from the performance of those activities. Whatever the result comes, then we get entangled. Now someone may say that ultimately everything is God's creation and God is responsible for it. So we can divide this in two parts. One is broadly, definitely there could be different divisions of it. The broad divisions are the sinful activities and pious activities. When we say sinful activities, people do commit a lot of sin, and then they say, oh, this is something that, why is it happening? Is it something being induced by God? What is the answer to it? The answer is that Lord is not inducing us to do certain activities, whether it is good activities or the bad activities. Again, let's get into the laws of nature. Ultimately, the laws of nature is very strong. The three gunas, satogun, rajogun and tamogun, mode of goodness, mode of passion and mode of ignorance. These three gunas are very, very strong, and they work in a very hard manner, and we cannot at times even recognize that ultimately we are bounded by the ropes of these three gunas. So what we should do? So we can take an example of a judge. When a judge awards a punishment to a criminal, so ultimately the judge is not responsible for awarding the punishment. It is the criminal or the wrongdoer itself who has performed that very wrong act, and he has been simply given the verdict on the basis of the performance of the act. It is not being done under the direction of the judge. On the face of it, it may appear that ultimately it is being done by the judge himself, but the reality is not so. So judge is not the deciding factor there. Likewise, God is not the deciding factor. God is not the inducing factor for committing sinful activities in this world. This is important to understand. Otherwise, people at times, they blame God for these activities. Then comes, so what is the shloka 15? What is the ultimate reason for it? We talked about the three gunas, and there is a reference of mode of ignorance or tamoguna also. So what does this ignorance do? The ignorance factor, basically it covers our real knowledge. We all have a pure knowledge, because Sat, Chit and Ananda, full of knowledge. Our real knowledge is covered because we identify everything in relationship with the matter. And because our real knowledge is covered, we are unable to see things as they are. So this is a reference from Shloka 15. You may please refer it there. And then what happens? What is the next step? We understood that this is a problem. So if you look at Shloka 12, 13, 14 and 15, they can be categorized as one family, and there is a discussion on the problem aspect. Now we are getting into the solution aspect, 16 and 17. So 16 and 17 talks about the knowledge, the power of knowledge, how this knowledge functions into this world. So knowledge helps to reveal everything with the passage of time. So here in 16 and 17, if you look at, then there is an analogy that's being given by Lord Krishna. Very practical analogy, just like there is a sun and the sun starts shining. In the morning, eventually as it starts shining, then eventually, it dissipates the darkness. Likewise, the real knowledge helps us to dissipate this material conception of life. Ultimately, we have to get rid of this material conception of life. That's the aim of this human life. That we have to get out of this material conception of life and go back to the real conception of life, that is the spiritual conception. So here in this Shloka 17, there is a reference of 4 words. You may all please easily remember them. So the 4 words are, I just gave a small mnemonic to it, FIRM. Okay, so F stands for faith, I stands for intelligence, R stands for refuge, and M stands for mind. So what we have to do? So we all have faith in this knowledge. That's why you're listening me. And then if you have faith, then basis this knowledge, you are applying your intelligence to understand the subject matter of God. Then eventually, so your intelligence is being utilized in the service of God. When your intelligence is utilized, then you eventually take shelter of God, refuge, so, or surrender to God. When you surrender to God, and then in the last M ideally should come as a third, but I have just made this mnemonic, FIRM. So M is representing mind. So your faith is invested, your intelligence is invested, your mind is invested, and then you finally surrender to the Lordship. And what is the outcome? Okay, fine, we did all these 3 things. Then you may ask, what is the outcome? The outcome is, again in Shloka 17, there are 2 words being used, Gachanti and Punravriti. So when we say Gachanti means in Sanskrit, it's like the place where we go. If we go to some place, and then we definitely, we again, like in this material world, there is Punravriti. Gachanti is being referred for going. Once you go back, you do not come back from there. So if we go to Krishna Loka, or if we go to the kingdom of God, then we do not come back from there. This is the verdict of Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna says, Na tad bhasyate suryo na shashanko na pavaka ye gatva va nirvatante tad dhamam paramam mama. So once we go there, we do not come from that place. That is Gachanti. So when we put all this FIRM, and then the outcome is Gachanti. And Punravriti. Punravriti means the repetition of the birth and death of this material body stops. We do not again and again take birth into this material world. This cycle breaks, because now we are settled. We are gone back into the spiritual world or into the kingdom of God, we do not have to come back from there, because that is our real home, original home. So this is a solution being given in shlokas 16 and 17. Let's move on. Then 18th is very important shloka. There is a reference, the way we can mention it as transcendental vision of equality. So Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shuni Cheva Shapakecha Pandita Samadarshina. So here this word Pandita Samadarshina is being used, and this is very significant. Pandita, who is Pandit? The qualification of Pandit has been mentioned here. A Pandit is a learned scholar or a learned Brahmin who basically looks at all the living entities on the same platform, Sama Darshina. And it is not easy, because when you want to see everything on the same platform, means whether it is a dog eater or whether it is scheduled caste, whatever categories are there, whether this person is very intelligent, this person is very rich, or this is dog, or this is plant, insects, birds. You look at every living entity on the same platform. How can we do that? And we do not really discriminate between this is good and this is bad. This is like spiritual perfection that we achieve in life. So once we achieve spiritual perfection, then we know, okay, there's no thing as such good or bad. But what is there? On the spiritual platform of perfection, ultimately everything is miserable in this world if it is not connected to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we have to connect everything with Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's what we were discussing even in the last session. So vision is, we look everyone on the platform of spiritual personality. That means everyone has a spirit inside, not the bodily aspect, but we look at the spiritual aspects of a person. But for that, we need to activate the spiritual eyes. We need to develop, or we need to cultivate that spiritual eyes through which we can visualize things as they are. And that's what we have to learn. So Pandita Samadarshina. Now 20 and 21. It is again in continuation to what we discussed in Shloka 12. So again, I'll give an example to help you to understand this. So again, the references, there are favorable situations in life, and then there are unfavorable situations in life. So if there are favorable situations, let's say if we do a business, and if we make a good money from that business, we started a business, we invested money, we had a good return through that business, then we engage that money in some form or other in the service of Krishna. You thought, oh, you're not overexcited about it, oh, I earn lakhs of rupees or crores of rupees. You're not excited about it too much. But yes, what do? Okay, Krishna has given me this money, let me engage it in his service. This is called as the proper utilization of the favorable situations in our life. Then the second is that unfavorable situations. Unfavorable situations, what happened? That, okay, there's a problem. We started the business did not really go well. So what should be done? When the business did not go well, it is an unfavorable situation for us. So let's not get distracted. Let's not get distracted. What we should do, let me be engaged. Let me keep doing what I am supposed to do in life. Let me continue with that. Let me continue that momentum. Whatever I have been assigned to, I should continue my focus in that direction. Assigned to means whatever my basic services are there that I perform on regular basis to please Krishna, that I should continue with. And then the word that's being used here is Vindyanti Atmani Yat Sukham, because he is happy within himself. He is satisfied with himself. He is not too much dependent on the external happiness of this world. That is why his focus is altogether different. He is not worried about the favorable or unfavorable situations too much. He is just living within self. That's what a Muni is. He is just contemplating internally and looking things from a different vision altogether than what the society looks at. Okay, this is Shloka 20 and 21, a brief overview. The last is very important shloka, Shloka 5.22. Let's recite it together. Yehi sansprasha bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adhantavat kaunteya nateshu ramte buddha. Buddha word is being used. We'll talk about it, Buddha. So here, ultimately, the theme is that indulgence in sense enjoyment is ultimately dangerous for us. It can create a big chaos in our life. So sense control is essential for the spiritual advancement. If you are looking for the spiritual advancement in life, then we must have a good sense control. If we do not have sense control, then there can be a problem. Then any happiness, ultimately we are looking for the enjoyment in this world, and then enjoyment is not banned, but any happiness which ends at a certain point in time, the limited nature of the happiness of this material world, then what is the problem? Then it is not a real happiness. It is maybe the shadow of the happiness, but it is not real happiness. It is basically creating a source of distress for us ultimately. Ultimately, it's going to create a source for distress for us. It may appear to be a source of happiness for us, but in reality, it will create distress for us. So real happiness can only be experienced on the spiritual platform. And once you start experiencing real happiness, then you lose taste for the artificial happiness of this world. I'll give you an example that I often quote, and I like this example very much from my childhood days. When we were kids, that time there were two beverages or drinks used to come into the market. One was this Banta bottle and another was this Coca-Cola. So initially we used to buy this Banta bottle, which used to be a little cheaper. And then once we got an opportunity to drink Coca-Cola or Pepsi, then we gradually lost the taste in that Banta bottle. How did that happen? Because ultimately we got the higher taste. I mean, from that perspective, we got the higher taste, we renounce the lower taste. This is how this material world works. Once you get a higher taste in life, then you renounce the lower taste in life. So we all have to ultimately focus for the higher taste. We all are craving for the higher taste, but we are not seeking it because we are not applying, we are not putting our intelligence in the right direction to get that higher taste in life. Okay, so real happiness can only be experienced on the spiritual platform. Now, quickly doing a recap. Today we covered from 12 to 22. 12, 13, 14, 15, it talks about peace and entanglement. Then it also talked about the Swabhavastu Parvartate. That means ultimately it's not that God is responsible for our actions. It is we only. Because of our samskaras, we have created some samskaras, and then we are acting, we are bound to act because of those samskaras. Then we talked about, we gave an example of judge. Then we talked about how ignorance has covered everything. Then we talked about how real knowledge can help us to get rid of that ignorance from our life. Then we talked about the transcendental vision of equality, Pandita Samadarshina, looking everything on the same platform. Then we talked about favorable and unfavorable situations of life, how to deal with them in our day-to-day life. And then in the end, we talked about the sense enjoyment ultimately is dangerous, and we must focus on gaining the real happiness in life. So with this note, I thank all of you for joining today's weekend wisdom series on Bhagavad Gita.